My name is Jack, and this is the story of the scariest night of my life. It all started one evening when my parents were at work. They told me and my younger brother, Tim, to stay in the basement and keep out of trouble. We didn't mind because the basement had our TV, and we loved playing video games together. It was getting dark outside, and we were deep into a game. Tim was laughing, and I was shouting instructions at the screen. Suddenly, we heard a noise upstairs. It sounded like the front door creaking open. I paused the game, and we both listened carefully. We thought it was just a wind. But then we heard heavy footsteps. Someone was walking around upstairs. Our parents weren't supposed to be home for hours. My heart started pounding in my chest. Who could it be? We crept up the stairs, trying to be as quiet as possible. The footsteps stopped, and we heard a low, eerie humming. It was coming from the living room. Tim grabbed my arm, and I could feel him trembling. I tried to calm him down. We reached the top of the stairs and peeked around the corner. There, standing in the middle of our living room, was a man. He was tall and had wild, unkempt hair, and his eyes had a crazed look. He was holding something in his hand, but it was too dark to see what it was. "Who are you?" I managed to say, my voice shaking. He didn't answer, just looked at us. I had no idea who this man was, but I knew we needed to get out of there. I started backing up, pulling Tim with me. The man took a step forward, and as he was walking, he said, "I'm your uncle. Your parents never told you about me." I remembered hearing my parents talk about an Uncle Harold once, but they always said he was trouble and best forgotten. Now I understood why. The man took another step closer, and I could see what he was holding, a long, rusty knife. I turned and ran, dragging Tim with me. We bolted down the stairs and back into the basement. I slammed the door shut and locked it. Tim was crying now, and I tried to comfort him, even though I was just as scared. I tried to use my phone, but there was no signal. The sound of footsteps came down the stairs. Uncle Harold was coming for us. I looked around for anything we could use to defend ourselves. There was an old baseball bat in the corner. I grabbed it and stood in front of Tim. The door handle rattled, and then the door burst open. Uncle Harold stood there, his smile wider than ever. I swung the bat with all my might, hitting him in the arm. He yelled in pain and dropped the knife. I grabbed Tim's hand, and we ran past Uncle Harold, up the stairs, and out the front door. We didn't stop running until we reached our neighbor's house. The police came and took Uncle Harold away. They said he had escaped from a mental institution. Our parents came home, hugging us and saying how sorry they were for not telling us about him. To this day, I can't play video games in the basement without thinking about that night. My name is Tom, and I live alone in a basement apartment with my dog, Max. Max is a big, friendly German shepherd, and he's always been a great companion. Life was simple and quiet, just how I liked it. One night, I was lying on the couch, watching TV, and Max was snoozing by my feet. It was late, and I was starting to doze off when Max suddenly sprang up and started barking furiously. His ears were perked, and he was staring at the door. My heart skipped a beat. Max never barked like that unless something was wrong. I tried to calm him down, but he just kept barking. I got up slowly and walked towards the door, feeling a chill run down my spine. I listened carefully and heard faint noises coming from outside. It sounded like someone was trying to break in. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. They told me they were on the way. I hung up and looked around for something to defend myself with. There was a baseball bat by the door. I grabbed it and held it tight, my eyes never leaving the door. Max was still barking, growling low in his throat. Suddenly, the door burst open and a masked man stood there staring right at me. I raised the bat, ready to swing, but the intruder was quick. He lunged at me, knocking the bat out of my hands. Max jumped at him, biting his arm, but the man kicked him away. Max yelped and fell back, but he didn't stop growling. I scrambled to my feet and tried to fight back, but the intruder was strong. He shoved me to the ground and started grabbing things from my apartment, my laptop, my phone, even my wallet from the table. I could hear sirens in the distance getting closer. The intruder heard them too. He looked at me, and then he ran out the door, disappearing into the night. I rushed to Max, who was limping but seemed okay. I hugged him tight, feeling tears in my eyes. The police arrived moments later. They searched the area but couldn't find the intruder. They took my statement and assured me they'd do everything they could to catch him. They asked if I had any idea who it might have been, but I had no clue. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every noise made me jump, and I kept checking the door to make sure it was locked. Max stayed close to me, his warm presence a comfort in the dark. Living alone in that basement wasn't the same after that night. But through it all, I knew I could count on Max. He was my protector, my friend, and the one who made me feel safe when everything else felt so terrifying. This is the story of the scariest night of my life. My sister Emily and I were visiting our grandparents' house for the summer. Their house was huge, old, and full of creepy corners and dark rooms. We loved exploring it, even though it gave us the chills sometimes. One evening, a bunch of other kids from the neighborhood came over. We decided to play hide and seek in the basement. The basement was the creepiest part of the house, with its dim lights, cobwebs, and strange smells. But we were all excited and thought it would be fun. Emily and I hid together. We found a dark corner behind some old furniture and giggled as we heard the seeker counting. The game started, and we could hear footsteps and whispers all around us. Suddenly, we heard a strange noise. It sounded like a low, moaning sound, echoing through the basement. As soon as we started talking, the noise stopped, but then we heard it again, louder this time. It was followed by a faint, eerie laugh. We both froze, too scared to move. The footsteps of the other kids seemed to stop too, as if everyone had heard the noise. We stepped out from our hiding spot and started looking for the other kids. The basement seemed even darker and creepier now. We saw shadows moving and heard whispers, but no one answered when we called out. Then we realized one of the girls, Lisa, was missing. She was the youngest and always scared easily. We started to panic, calling her name louder, but there was no response. The strange noises kept getting louder, and it felt like the walls were closing in on us. Suddenly, we saw her. A black woman in a white dress appeared at the far end of the basement. Her dress was old and torn, and her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. She didn't walk. She seemed to float towards us. Her face was twisted in a horrifying smile, and her hands reached out as if to grab us. We screamed and ran as fast as we could. The other kids saw her too and joined us, all of us racing up the stairs, tripping and stumbling in our haste to escape. We burst into the living room, slamming the door behind us. We were all panting, eyes wide with terror. Our grandparents came running, asking what happened. We tried to explain, but it all came out in a jumbled mess of words. They didn't seem to believe us, but they could see how scared we were. They checked the basement, but found nothing unusual. We never played in the basement again. Lisa was found hiding in the old storage room, scared but unharmed. She said she heard the noises too and saw the woman, just like we did. Our grandparents told us it was just our imagination, but we knew what we saw.